Good evening, everyone. My name is Nahian Rifayat, and I am a junior software engineer at Nascenia Limited of Bangladesh. Today, I will be discussing LLaMa 2. So, the title for today's tutorial or presentation is Unleashing the Power of Language Models with LLaMa 2. So, let's dive into it. So, as I mentioned in the title of this presentation, what is a language model, you may ask? A language model is an artificial intelligence model that's designed to understand and generate human language. So the languages we use to speak in our day-to-day lives are called language models in the case of natural language processing. And what a language model does is understand the context of sentences or words, and or if you may say, it understands natural language, the context of it, and it can also generate natural language, so human-like language. So what are the use cases of language models, or why would you want to use a language model? You would want to use a language model predominantly because you may not have enough data to understand the context or train a language model, your language model, on a specific type of human language. So if you use a language model, it's time and resource efficient because you can use pre-trained data, or you can use transfer learning to tune that language model to your specific needs. And for limited data availability, you can use language models for a wide range of tasks if you use transfer learning to tune or fine-tune your language model. And it will give you a state-of-the-art performance if you use a better language model, and domain expertise are not required. So if you use APIs or if you use a language model, you may not have to dive too deep into it. And there are lots of pre-trained models around on the internet, so you can use many open source and closed source language models. So how does a language model work? If you think about the computer does not understand human language. It only understands digits. So we have to represent the words or the sentences into numbers. So that's where word embeddings or word-to-vec embeddings come in. What a language model does is that it breaks the sentence into words or tokens, or you can say syllables, or a character and a sentence, and these tokens can be later represented in a numeric way. So in the case of word embeddings, what a language model does is that it converts a word into a number, a float in our case. So a float number would be used to be used in a language model. For example, there's a sentence in this slide where I have put the sentence that if you say, I saw a bat, in the context of animals, the language model understands bat as an animal. But if you use this sentence in a sports context, the language model would understand that bat is an equipment. So if you're from Japan, if you play baseball, or if you're from the subcontinent, Indian subcontinent, if you play cricket over there, you would know that a bat is something to be used to hit a ball. So it is an equipment. Moving on, if we understand the context of the word in a specific sentence, we can use our language model in a wide variety of use cases. For example, part of speech tagging. So In a sentence, what does a word function as? Is it a noun? Is it a pronoun? Is it a verb? So, for example, the cat sleeps peacefully. In this sentence, the cat would be a noun, and a language model could be used to detect that the cat is a noun. We could also use a language model for named entity recognition, sentence syntax, and sentence structure. We could also use it for semantic similarity, so happy and joyful could be synonyms. So the semantic similarity would be really high. We can also use language models for text completion. So after we have understood things about a language model, we want to talk about LLaMa 2. So what is LLaMa 2? LLaMa 2, or Large Language Model Meta AI's second revision of this model, is a large language model developed by Meta AI, or the Facebook's research division. You may call it Facebook AI as well. It is also supported by Microsoft, and this model, or this large language model, is open source and available for anyone to use and modify or fine-tune, but you cannot use it to develop your own model on top of LLaMa 2 because of Facebook's policy reasons. It is supported by many languages, so it can be trained on many languages, for example, English, Russian, Czech, French, Spanish, etc. And it is a state-of-the-art model, and it can be also used for code generation. It can also be used for chatbots. So diving deeper into the use cases, LLaMa 2 can be used to answer questions for trivia QA, for mathematical understanding questions, for summarizing text, for translating languages, so translating sentences, and generating creative text formats, right? Also to create creative content, so different kinds of created contents could be also generated using LLaMa 2. So let's dive into the general information about LLaMa 2. LLaMa 2 is can be found in various sizes. So in the context of number of parameters. So LLaMa 2 models are available for sizes from 7 billion parameters to up to 70 billion parameters, and it is open source, and we can modify it specific to our needs, but we cannot build a model on top of it. Some more detail about LLaMa 2 is that LLaMa 2 is trained on 2 trillion tokens. So it's 40%, the dataset is 40% bigger than than LLaMa 2's previous revision, which was LLaMa 1, and it is trained on 28 languages. So the pre-trained model supports 28 languages, including Bulgarian, Catalan, Czech, Danish, German, English, Spanish, French, and so on. So these languages, the ones I see on this, you can see on the screen, are mostly derivatives of the Latin language. So if you want to use LLaMa 2, you should keep that in mind. And if you want to use another type of language, such as Bengali or Dravidian languages or Indian languages, you would really want to look into the data set, and you would want to train LLaMa 2 on that specific language on a large text corpus to really test LLaMa 2's powers out on that specific language. So that's a thing to keep in mind. So diving into the use cases for Bengali language, LLaMa 2 is not related to Bengali as of yet, but it can be used on Bengali if we decide that we can train LLaMa 2 on a very large Bengali dataset or text corpus. The LLaMa 2 chat architecture is shown in this slide. And I will not go into the details of this architecture, but how LLaMa 2 works, or LLaMa 2 chat works, is that it is trained on a large data set. So pre-trained data is used, and then this model is fine-tuned by using reinforcement learning from human feedback, and then this human feedback is again fed into the model, so the model improves on itself. So what is the language distribution used in training LLaMa 2? Mostly, as you can see from the table right here, English is the dominant language used in the data set. So most of the tokens are in the English language. So what a token is, it can be a specific word or a syllable. So you can moving on, LLaMa 2 performs better than most open source models at its 70 billion parameter sized architecture. As you can see on the multi-model language understanding dataset, it is way better on the 70 billion parameter size than LLaMa 2 and Microsoft's Falcon, and also the smaller sizes of Falcon and LLaMa 2 as well. If you look at this row here and this row here and all the other rows as well, you can see that LLaMa 2 at its 70 billion parameter size, it crushes all the other open source models. So LLaMa 2 is actually very strong on these benchmarks, so you would want to consider LLaMa 2 for your specific use case. But one thing to note is that LLaMa 2 is trained on NVIDIA A100s, which is a very expensive GPU. So if you have a cap on your model size or storage, or if you want to save energy, or if you want to save costs, you would want to look at LLaMa 2's performance on lower model sizes, and you may want to consider other models if you can look at other models for that specific use case. So these are some stats on the LLaMa 2 versus other models. As you can see here, on human evaluation metric, for helpfulness, LLaMa 2 beats other models such as ChatGPT or Falcon, which is Microsoft's large language model, Vicuña, and Palm. You can see that LLaMa 2 performs better. On the right hand side, if you look at this, you can also see the helpfulness win rate on a specific the judge was GPT-4, so the win rate is for LLaMa 2 is better. Moving on, in terms of safety, LLaMa 2 chat is better than ChatGPT, or equivalent to ChatGPT, and better than other open source models such as Palm, Vicuña, MPT. Sometimes you can see that the LLaMa 2 70 billion parameter is chat model is better than all the other models. In terms of power consumption, if that's what you want to look at, if you want to save energy or if you want to save the environment, you should consider that the LLaMa 2 has the training time of a large number of hours. So the power consumption and the time to train LLaMa 2 or LLaMa 2 chat is huge. So if you want to reduce carbon dioxide emissions, you would want to look at the metrics here. And for academic benchmark consumption, let's see, there the LLaMa 2 70 billion parameter crushes all the other models, but if you go down, you would want to consider that if you would want to consider other models as well, because as the number of parameters go down, the difference in the performance between other models actually decrease. For helpfulness, on different data sets or different benchmarks, you can compare LLaMa 2 to other models, but here GPT-4, which is the base model for ChatGPT, performs better. It also sometimes Palm 2, which is used in Bard AI, is also better than LLaMa 2 in these benchmarks. So you would want to consider that as well. And on this metric, or so if you look at this figure, LLaMa 2 chat also performs better on human evaluation, but as we can say, human evaluation can be biased depending where you're from, depending on what your beliefs are. For truthfulness and toxicity, large language models like LLaMa 2 are they can be very good to be used in specific contexts. So, but if you look at this column right here, this row right here, LLaMa 1 performs better than LLaMa 2 at 13 billion parameters. So for truthfulness, and for toxicity, it works better than LLaMa 1. So in the case of toxicity, Microsoft's Falcon is the best model to choose at 7 billion parameters. For evaluation of the fine-tuned large language models, ChatGPT is the best one to be used for truthfulness. So if you want truthful answers, or you want to use a large language model for truthful question and answers, you would want to use ChatGPT. But other than that, LLaMa 2 crushes all the other models by producing less toxic replies for statements. So here's another table for truthfulness and toxicity. I won't go into the specific details as I've explained it earlier. For the overall safety of the model, for the overall violation percentage, LLaMa 2 70 billion parameter crushes all other models at all other sizes. And for overall safety and helpfulness, the LLaMa 2 model beats all the other models at all sizes. So if you can look at this slide, what you will see is that LLaMa 2 is less violating in terms of hateful and harmful crimes, illicit criminal activity, and unqualified advice compared to all the other models present in this slide, where ChatGPT, Falcon, and Palm fall behind of LLaMa 2. But as you can see in this slide, in this particular column, Falcon beats LLaMa 2 on unqualified advice. So it generates less unqualified advice than LLaMa 2. So that you should consider it as well. For code generation, LLaMa 2 works really well at 70 billion parameters. For natural questions and trivia QA, at 70 billion parameters, LLaMa 2 works really well, but as the numbers of the parameters go down, LLaMa 1 is not a bad large language model to be selected. For toxic generation on various racial groups, for statements that may be toxic, or Falcon is the best model to be chosen on the pre-trained model, because Falcon generates less and less toxic generations for the most part. But in terms of fine-tuned models, Llama 2 works better than ChatGPT Falcon, as you can see on this slide. For religious groups, on the pre-trained models, uh, Llama 1 works close to Llama 2 on 65 billion parameters, but on 70 billion parameters, Llama 2 works better than Llama 1 and Falcon and point 3 and MPT. But for the fine-tuned architecture of Llama 2, it crushes all the other models in terms of positive statements or mean sentiment score compared to ChatGPT, Falcon Instruct, and MPT Instruct at all levels. For political ideology, Llama 2 works better than many models in the fine-tuned architecture, and it produces positive replies in the fine-tuned architecture than other models. For different professions like metalworking, sewing, healthcare, computer, Llama 2 chat works better when used in fine-tuned fine-tuned for the specific use case for bold prompts. And lastly, this is the end of our tutorial for today. What I would want to tell you is that Llama 2 is a model that can be used as an open source large language models. Depending on the use case, you would want to look at the metrics and try some things out. And if you consider other models as well, you would find the right use cases for Llama 2 and also other language models as well. But there is something to be noted that if your user base crosses 700 million users, then you would want to contact Facebook or Meta AI for using Llama 2, because that's their policy. And there's a lot of ground to cover for Llama 2 development, because it is still under development, so we do not understand it fully. And that brings me to this quote by Eliezer Woodkowski, is that by far the greatest danger of artificial intelligence is that people conclude too early that they understand it. So whatever we use Llama 2 or other large language models for, it is our responsibility to understand what goes into large language models and how to use it for a specific use case. So that brings me into our today's session and presentation. I have been Nahian Rifayat, and thank you for watching.